How's it hanging, guys? Aaron from PhoneDog.com here, and the LG Revolution's older, bigger, smarter, more powerful brother is in the house. The LG Optimus 3D here, and it was announced at Mobile World Congress earlier in the year in Barcelona. It has a lot of stuff that, in my opinion, the LG Revolution should have had when it launched on Verizon. One of those being the dual-core processor. It has a 1 GHz Texas Instruments OMAP processor, so Texas Instruments in the dual-core game now. And also it has a 4.3-inch display, 5 megapixel, actually dual 5 megapixel cameras on the back. It shoots regular video in 1080p, 3D video in 720p, front-facing camera as well. Android 2.2 still has that custom LG user interface on it as well. Now, it's not available in the States just yet. Hopefully, we'll see it soon. It's coming to AT&T as a Thrill 4G at some point this summer, so it's my guess that we'll see it sometime in the near future. Is this a device for you? Should you go with the Evo 3D, or should you go with some other 3D device that's going to come out later in the year? Kind of wait and see what happens. We'll find out that and more in the review. But first, special thanks to our buddies over at Best Buy. They're not hooking us up with these since they don't stock this phone. They just hooked us up with a bunch of phones that I just shipped to Phone Dog East for use in our One Paw Bandit game. So when you go into Best Buy Mobile to buy this or Revolution or whatever, you can't buy this, but Revolution, whatever, you'll walk out working. Set up email, set up your web, help you get everything going. So when you walk out that door, you're working. Enough of that, let's get into the review. Is this the phone to get? Should you try and buy one of these from an unlocked reseller? Or should you wait for the Thrill 4G? Or should you wait until later in the year and see what other 3D phones are out? We'll find out that and more in the full review. You know, I have to tell you, the 3D content on this device is pretty trippy, to say the least. It's kind of interesting to see 3D on a mobile phone. But here it is, the LG Optimus 3D. Now, this was announced at Mobile World Congress in Barcelona earlier in the year. So you have this coming out at some point in the year, and it's coming to the States as the LG Thrill 4G on AT&T. And then you have the HTC Evo 3D, which is coming to Sprint on June 24th. So you have some 3D devices that are starting to hit the market. And I'm telling you, it's kind of funky to see 3D content on these devices, but it's a pretty well-built device. Now, this to me is what the Revolution should have been. And when I say should have been, I'm really referring to the dual-core processor. This has a 1 GHz Texas Instruments OMAP dual-core processor, so it's much faster in day-to-day use, not only in day-to-day use, but also in things like quadrant standard scores and more, since it has a dual-core processor. Big benefit there, 1 GHz dual-core, 4.3-inch display, and you still have the front-facing camera for video calling. You have dual 5 megapixel cameras. Now, this shoots HD video at 720p, and it shoots non-HD video at 1080p. So depending on what type you're shooting, that's what it takes it at. Micro USB charging port over here, HDMI port over there, mini HDMI. You have your 3.5mm headphone jack up top, along with a power button over here, your volume rocker, and then a button to get to 3D. Now, what that does is it brings out the 3D menu, which you can't see in the camera since it doesn't show 3D, but you can see 3D guide, YouTube 3D, and this is actually displaying in 3D right now. So if you hold it the right way, it looks like it's popping out of the phone. So you have 3D gallery, 3D camera, and actually I have to actually look at the camera because it gives me kind of a headache, but 3D guide. And one thing I will say, you know, I've worked a little bit with the Evo 3D, and perhaps they've tweaked it, and maybe my opinion will change when it comes to the Phone Dog Labs, as I like to call it, basically my office. But, you know, this is one of my favorites in terms of 3D that I've worked with. I feel like the 3D image quality is a little bit better on this one than on the HTC Evo 3D. Now, that said, you know, I've had 10 minutes with the Evo 3D, so, you know, perhaps that'll change when I get it in the office. But you have all these 3D options here. Camera, you have pre-installed galleries, YouTube 3D, guide, games and apps, and more. So you have that button over there on the side, and you have that flash in the back, which I forgot to mention a second ago. Now, it's running Android 2.2, but it's running LG's custom user interface, just like the LG Revolution. But you can just see in a lot of things in day-to-day tasks, for example, just scrolling up and down. And if you get a chance, go back and check out the Revolution video where I'm